Hey trappers, Dale Billingsley here, Billingsley Brand Lures. Good morning. Starting off this crisp morning here with a really nice coon. Timber doing her thing. We're going to get him taken care of and get on down the road, guys. Well, guys, it's taken a while, but there's a cat, by golly. Don't know where they've been, don't know where he's been hanging out, but there he is. Doesn't look like it's too terrible of a cat, not real spotted up, but cat nonetheless. So anyway, we'll get him taken care of and get on down the road. All right, guys, there's another coon caught in a number 1.5 there in a dry trail going out that cornfield. Timber kind of doing her thing, telling on him, so we're gonna get him and get him taken care of and go get some more. All right, guys, so we had not a bad run for the way the weather is. I mean, I think we ended up with 3 coon and a cat today. It wasn't anything spectacular, but we really don't have a whole lot of stuff out. We're kind of starting to wind things down just a little bit here. The weather's fixing to turn for the worst. I think Thursday they're talking, what, Mike, 11 or 12 below, something like that. So we're trying to wind things up a little bit. So we're going to flip the camera around, and Mike Hauk from Last Step Trap Supply and Hide Tanning is going to show us how to skin a few feet out here on a Bobcat in case there's anything that, anytime that y'all might want to have a cat tanned, or if you're, something of that sort, you want to learn how to skin feet out, Mike's going to show us how to do that. So we'll flip the camera around and let him show you that.
Alright guys, peeling the feet. Just stick the knife in right behind the pad. The only time you don't cut that pad is if you're going to sell it to a taxidermist or you're going to have it mounted yourself. You don't really want to split that pad. I go right up to the elbow. Just carefully cut that membrane. And since this one ain't going to taxidermy, I'll run my knife backwards. Go right up through that pad. That little spot right there is tough. And my knife's pretty dull. Split it up like that. Cut that little pad thing off.
We got to sharpen the knife right quick, guys. We'll be right back to it.
We got a bunch of dollars. Thanks to kids. This one ain't much better. But it don't take a whole lot to peel these out. Follow that silver skin all the way around. Cut the other half of that little pad. And once you get it so far, you can just poke your finger through. And I cheat. dew claw. We're doing the front flip. Just go in there right behind it. Then once you get it so far, it'll unroll itself. On this back side, just stick your point down in there. It'll only let you go so far. And then I take my thumb, stick in there, poke that middle down. Right there, we're to the toenail. Get right behind it and just give it a cut. Then you always do your two outside ones first. Well, I do anyway. Watch that little webbing in there. Then sometimes you can just give it a little bit of a pull. Don't pull too hard, especially if it's been in a leg hold. Alright, there we're to that back of that nail. To the back of that one. That's how we peel the feet on a Bobcat.
Alright guys, so we showed you there how we skin the feet out on a cat. So I'm going to show you how I scrape and stretch a raccoon. Like I said, Dave's kind of a short day for us on the line, so we thought we might take up a little time here first this evening and maybe show y'all a thing or two of what we do and how we do it, and maybe, hopefully, it'll help somebody. So the first thing you want to do is comb your raccoon. Get him good and combed. Make sure there's no burrs, no mud balls, nothing like that. If there's a burr or a mud ball or anything in there and you hit it with a scraping knife, you're going to knock a hole. And you're going to knock holes anyway. I mean, until you get things figured out. And I still knock holes, and I don't know how many thousands of them I've done, but a bunch. And you're still going to knock a hole now and then. So it's nothing to get upset or worried about or anything. It still happens to all of us. So anyway, we've got our coon combed here. We got all the mud and burrs and everything out of him. So the next thing we're going to do is turn this coon. We're going to turn him wrong side out here. And then we're going to do what we prep them. We prep them to go on the beam and on the stretcher. So we turn him wrong side out here, and I got to grab a knife, guys. So the first thing I do, and I try to do this when I'm skinning, is take the cartilage out of the end of the nose. And all you do is just put your finger underneath it and cut down into it, like so, and then come across the back side of it and just take that cartilage right out. You want to get as close to the end of the inside of the nose as you can get. What that does, that allows that stretcher to get up in there a little farther, and it'll actually gain you an inch of length out of that coon when you put him on that stretcher. And the next thing you do is I hang him up, And I always cut the bottom lip off, as you saw in the skinning video. I always cut that bottom lip off because we don't need it anyway. Then the next thing you do is shorten up the front legs and take a pretty good length off of them. It doesn't hurt anything. They're not thawing the legs. All it's going to do is help that coon dry a little better, and those legs aren't going to flop down when he's on the stretcher. They're going to be standing out there, and it won't slip or spoil on you right there. Then on the belly of the coon, you've got to cut an inspection window. And on a boar coon, it's really easy. You just go right above the penis hole. And on a female, you just kind of guess, and by golly, as to where that is. And all you do is just trim that little bit out. Just trim it out. And that's your inspection window, so that when that's on a stretcher, all the buyer sees is that much of that coon, and that's it. That's all he sees of the fur. Okay? And the next thing you do is split the tail, and do that with our handy dandy little tail zipper here. You just hook it in the tail hole and just give a pull and pull it down to the end, and then that splits that tail open. If you don't do that, that's gonna slip. It's gonna spoil on you. So you've got to open that up. Okay, so the next thing you're going to need is a good, really sharp knife. And I like a long fillet type knife because that's what we're fixing to do. We're fixing to fillet this fat off this tail. And the way I do that is open that tail up, take the back side of my knife and kind of open it up a little bit like that, and then pull it tight, and then about 3/4 of the way down that tail, just lay that knife on it and fillet that fat right off of it. Okay? You can fillet that fat right off of there, and then you don't have to try to scrape that, and you're not gonna knock the tail off. Not that it matters, because they don't buy the tail anyway. It just makes everything look a little better. So anyway, that's all there is to it. You just fillet that off, clear down to the leather, and there it is. There's your tail. Now that coon's ready to go on scraping bait. Alright guys, now we've got our coon up on the beam, and I always start on the back first. It's the hardest there is to scrape on them, so that's where I always start. I like to get the hard part done and then go to the belly and get the easy side of it. You're going to need a good knife, a good fleshing knife, and get a knife that fits you and feels comfortable to you. Now this is a Sheffield knife that I use. You can use a Caribou and one of the Neckers, anything like that. But the biggest thing is get a knife that fits you. Don't scrimp and save on a knife. Get a good quality scraping knife. It's going to save you in the long run. It's going to make you it's going to make you money in the long run too. So there's two sides to a scraping knife. There's a sharp side, which is the outside curve, and then there's a pushing side, which is the inside curve. The pushing side should be dull. And when you get a brand new knife, you're going to have to dull it because it's going to come razor sharp on both sides. Run it against a block of wood, against a brick, concrete block, whatever it takes. Run a steel against it backwards, whatever it takes to get that thing dull. And then you want this side sharp. Semi, okay? You don't need to run it like a razor. It just needs to be sharp enough to do the job. So here we go. We're going to start on our coon. We're going to start right behind his ears, right here. And you're going to take the sharp side of your knife, and it's all about an angle. And once you figure out the angles, there's nothing to it. So you just start shaving and opening that coon up. You can see how that just rolls right down. The more fat you have on fur, the easier it is to scrape too. I know that doesn't sound logical, but believe me, it's true. And then once you get right below that coon's shoulders, you're going to feel that thing break. It's going to get really easy on you. And when it gets really easy like that, then's when you want to turn that knife over. And if it's a necker, you're just going to roll it. Okay, laugh, Mike. That's the hardest part of me using a necker is I've always turned and flipped the knife in my hands. So this whole business of just flipping one like this from this doesn't work for me. I'm pretty old school.
Hey, I don't mean to interrupt, but that'd be a hell of a video watching you run one around.
Me run a necker, yeah, that'd be a blooper. That'd be a blooper reel.
Yeah.
So anyway, once you get him to where he's broke, then you can just take that pushing side and just push that fat off, just like that. You just take it down to the leather. You don't want to be pulling hair follicles. You just want to scrape the fat off. And then always pull that fur up to you. Keep your work up close to you. There we are at the base of the tail. Just hit it on both sides of it. Okay, the back is done. There's half of our coon done right there. And what I do is I roll that coon a quarter so that we come here from the ear butt down over the front leg, just like that. Pull that nose around, keep that hide tight. Just take the sharp side of your knife, big chunk of fat and gristle up here below his ear. You want to be really careful right here because it's really tender. So you just you're kind of shaving, but you're kind of pushing at the same time. Once you get that broke, then just come over top, right over top of that front leg. Okay? Once you're over that front leg, reach up, pull it, and hook it over the end of that beam, and not let you get under that front leg. Now, if this was a sow coon, we'd have to be really careful because of the teats. But we know this is a boar, so we don't have to worry about it. If it's a sow coon and she's a little bit titty and you hook one, you're gonna pop a hole. So you got to kind of stand your knife up a little more, and you'll hear it click under there as you go over top of it. But anyway, you just keep pushing. And you pull that coon up so that flank is running right straight down that beam. You just work it off, just like that right there. Alright, there's a quarter of that coon, 3/4 of him actually. Now we're going to roll him over. We're going to do the same on the other side. Come under that ear, knock that fat gristle out there, flip your knife, push over that front leg, get all that fat off of there, right over top of the leg, pull it up, hook it over the beam, scrape around it, come right on down. Always try to work in the center of your beam. You don't want to get off here on the edges, because what happens a lot of times, that hide will roll on the edge of that beam and you'll knock a hole in it by pushing on it. Pull that back leg up, right on top of that flank, push it right off. There we go, guys. We've got a scraped raccoon. All done. He's ready to go on a stretcher. Just give me a minute here and we'll set things up and I'll show you how to stretch them. Alright guys, now we put all our coon on wire stretchers. You can put them on boards, you know, that are framed, that are designed to stretch on, right shape, right size. We prefer to put them on wire because number one, we don't have time to put them all on boards. It takes a little longer, and number two, we don't have the storage space for all them boards. It's a whole lot easier. You can just hang 100 stretchers somewhere versus trying to stack up 100 boards somewhere. So anyway, that's our deal. Slide that coon on there. Make sure the nose of the stretcher is clear up in the nose of the coon. Make sure the back is on the back and the belly is on the belly. Don't get him rolled off here on the side like so. You want him squared up. pull him down. And then what I do is I take my pliers, I grab hold of that back leg and pull it down. Take the stretcher hook, hook that back leg in there like that and give it a little extra snug. And again, with the other back leg, do the same thing. Just get a hold of it with the pliers, pull it down, give it a little snug pull, and we've got the belly of that coon stretched. Do the same thing on the back. Just open up that tail about halfway down, hook that stretcher hook into it, pull on him. Don't be afraid, just pull on him. Get the length out of him. Then, to get even more length out of him, what we do is we pull these flanks down like so, and then pin a clothespin on it right there. We do the same thing on the other side. Try to make sure everything's squared up, square across, pull it down, pin it with a clothespin. And then you can do the same thing on the tail. You can put a clothespin on one side, come down the ways, put a clothespin on the other, and alternate them down through the tail, and that'll hold that tail open. So anyway, there is a stretched raccoon and ready to go. Be hung up where there's some heat and some air circulation, and that'll get you where you need to be. All right, guys, we're going to end it right here. I sure want to thank y'all for tuning in and watch. I appreciate it. Once again, this is Dale Billingsley with another one. Signing out.